low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Brian Giles with Brian Giles MTG. It is Wednesday, November 2nd, and this is take 2 of this video because I messed up and ran way over on the time, wasn't paying attention to the time. Because I was excited about these spoilers and wasn't paying attention to the clock at the bottom of the screen. So we're going to restart it, and starting off is Ambush Paratrooper. 1 white and 1 for a 1/2 human soldier with flash and flying, and pay 5 colors for, and creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. A little beefy for the boon, but it kind of reflects how magic wasn't really a thing back in that day. No. Next up is Take Flight. 1 blue and 3 colors for an enchantment aura that reads, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0, has flying, and whenever this creature attacks, draw a card. More card draw, love. You gotta like that. And the next card up proves what I've said in previous videos. Evangel of Synthesis. For 1 blue and 1 black, you get a 2/3 Phyrexian human cleric. Evangel of Synthesis enters when Evangel of Synthesis enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. As long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, Evangel of Synthesis gets +1/+0 and has menace. Now, I've said this in previous videos that blue and black are going to have some card draw love. This is proof of it. Next up is another card that proves another archetype that I've speculated that this deck would have in Wasteful Harvest. 1 green and 2 for an instant that reads mill 5 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. So self-mill, kind of in a black-green type of feel. I don't know how much play this will see, but if you're having that graveyard love, like I said, next up is another card that is very, very cool in Gnawing Vermin. 1 black mana for a rat. It says when Gnawing Vermin enters the battlefield, target player mills 2 cards. When Gnawing Vermin dies, target creature you don't control gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Mill is back. Rats are back. You can either use this as a self-mill card or to mill your opponent. There is serious value there for a single black mana. No doubt on that. Next up is Hero of the Dunes. For 1 white, 1 black, and 3 colors, you get a 3/2 human soldier. When Hero of the Dunes enters the battlefield, return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's to the battlefield. Creatures you control with mana value 3 or less get +1/+0. So some bonuses for weenie creatures, and you can bring one back when it comes into play. You can bring one back from the graveyard straight back to the battlefield. that is pretty dope. Next up, we have Argivian Avenger. For 6 colorless mana, you get a 5/5 artifact creature shapeshifter. Pay 1 colorless mana until end of turn. Argivian Avenger gets -1/-1 against your choice of flying, death touch, or haste. So you can mill it down all the way down to a 1/1 to give it all of that. But that's pretty serious there. It's a very versatile type of artifact creature. Next up is another card, and this is in Chinese, so bear with me as I get to the translation page here. And we're taking a long time. Sorry about that. It took a long time for the page to load for whatever reason. Nice slow internet. So Arms Race is one red and 3 for an enchantment that reads, pay 1 red and 3, and you may put an artifact card from your hand onto the battlefield. The artifact gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So you can put some of those beefy casting cost artifacts straight into play and they gain haste. That could be serious dopeness. This card will definitely see play, and it's only an uncommon. Next up, we have Goblin Blast Runner. A single red mana for a 1/2 goblin that reads, Goblin Blast Runner gets +2/+0 and has menace as long as you sacrifice a permanent this turn. Well, that's been a kind of a theme in the Mishra thing that I've seen, is the red-black sacrifice. So sacrifice a creature, this thing becomes a 3/2 with menace. So there is some serious value there. Next up, we have an interesting artifact creature in Power Plant Worker. 5 colorless mana for a 4/4 artifact creature assembly worker. Pay 3 colorless mana. Power Plant Worker gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If you control creatures named Mine Worker and Tower Worker, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Power Plant Worker instead. Activate only once each turn. So this thing can become, bigger. It can become a 6/6 once each turn, or if you have the 2 others, which it spoils 2 other cards. We're going to get cards that are based in the Urza lands. This is the Power Plant Worker. We get a Mine Worker and a Tower Worker. I'm interested to see what they do. So that's super dope. I'm not unhappy with that, and it's only a common. Next up, we have another super hype card. I'm really liking this card. This is what I'm going to call the Colorless Lotus, but its real name is the Transmogrant Altar, which is something used by Ashnod. The Transmogrant Altar is 3 colorless mana for an artifact that reads: pay 1 black, sacrifice tap it, sacrifice a creature, add 3 colorless mana. Or pay 2 colorless mana, tap it, sacrifice a creature, and create a 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature token. Activate only as a sorcery. This thing is super dope. It fits into a sacrifice creature deck, and you pay a black, tap it, and sacrifice a creature, and you get 3 colorless. That is serious value. I am hyped about this card. You should be too. You should watch out for this card, because that could generate some serious colorless mana to cast artifacts. And that is what you need in a set like this. Next up is another card that appears to be in Chinese, maybe Japanese. Probably Japanese. So this is Faithful Cooperation. 1 black and 3 for a sorcery that reads: target an artifact creature or creature you control. Draw cards equal to the number of its mana value. Opponent gains control of that permanent. This is another one of these things that makes me think that they are going toward some sort of PvE environment where you're facing off against boss monster, like was at Magic 30, or at least, the stuff they tried to do at Magic 30. Evidently, from what I'm understanding, there was kind of a debacle about some of the events. The people running the events were they were hired hands and didn't know what they were doing, and didn't know what was going on, didn't know the rules of what was going on. Yeah, it was just a big debacle. But the idea of helping your opponent out, that is something you really don't see that much. So I'm interested to see where this goes. Next up is Levitating Statue. 2 colorless mana for an artifact with flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Levitating Statue. Pay 2 colorless. Levitating Statue becomes a 1/1 construct artifact creature until end of turn. So it's an artifact that you can turn into a creature and has flying, and when you cast non-creature spells, it gets bigger. Next up, we have Mass Production. 1 white and 5 colorless for a sorcery that reads: create 4 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens. Next up, we have Autonomous Assembler. 5 colorless mana for a 4/5 artifact creature assembly worker. Yet another assembly worker. It has Vigilance, and pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on target assembly worker you control. And it has a prototype version for 1 white and 1 for a 2-2 version of it. So this thing can get out of pocket pretty fast. And if you're playing with some assembly workers, I mean, for 5 colorless mana for a 4/5 with vigilance isn't bad. And you can put +1/+1 counters on stuff. But even the 2/2 prototype version is still, with the vigilance and the ability to put +1/+1 counters on things, is still a very powerful little creature. Next up, we have Iron Claw Crusher. 7 colorless mana for a 4/6 artifact creature worm. Whenever Ironclaw Crusher attacks, target attacking creature gets +X/+0 till end of turn, where X is Ironclaw Crusher's power. It also has a prototype version for 2 green and 2 for a 2/5 version of it. So you can give some power boost to your creatures based on its power. It's not bad. Next up, we have Giant Slagmaw. 1 red and 2 for a 4/3 dinosaur with trample, and players can't gain life. That's a pretty dope card for a 4th. It's a 4/3 dinosaur with trample, and everyone can't gain life. So it's kind of a drawback where you can't gain life, but you get, for 3 mana, you get a 4/3 trample creature. That's not bad. Next up is Exaggeration. Exaggeration is Exaggeration is 2 red, 5 colorless. It's a beefy 7 for a sorcery that reads: each player reveals a number of cards from the top of their library equal to the number of non-land permanents they control. Puts all permanent cards they reveal this way onto the battlefield, puts the rest into their graveyard. I could see something like this in like a Jetmir deck, where you're just pumping out little weenie creatures, and you've got a lot of them on the battlefield. You got some way of giving them haste. But it's beefy. It's a rare. I don't know how much play it will see. So next up, we have Static Net. 1 white and 3 colors for an enchantment that reads: when Static Net enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Static Net leaves the battlefield. Static Net enters the battle. When Static Net enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and create a tapped Power Stone token. So this is an imprison enchantment, and you get more value than the one we saw out of Dominaria United, because you gain the 2 life and create a Power Stone token for the same cost. And the last one I'm going to do, because we're over 19 minutes now, is Mishra's Onslaught. 1 red and 3 colors for an instant that reads, create 2 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, or creatures you control get +2/+0 till end of turn. A very Mishra-esque type thing. And I love the flavor text on. Ha! Mishra! Ha! Urza has underestimated my strength yet again. Mishra. Reminds me of Anakin on Mustafar. You underestimate my power. Well, with that, I've underestimated how long this is taking me. So it's over 20 minutes. We're going to see you on the next spoiler video.